Welcome to the 3D Animation Hub. My name is Brian and I have animated for 7,000 hours over the last 3.5 years. As I know I have much to learn, I've just decided to make a video on what I've learned at least so far in my animation journey. In this video we're going to be talking about animating itself, of course, but we're also going to talk about life, mentality, and also finances. So without further ado, here's what 7,000 hours of animating has taught me. Let's hop in. We're going to start this off with some animating tips. Now, this isn't going to be a technical tutorial, it's more of a philosophy. So for this first point, I wanted to mention that it's well worth your time to pre-plan your shots. Pre-planning is going to save you a lot of time. You're putting in a little bit of time up front, but it's going to be saving you 10 times as much later in the shot. Because almost always when I don't pre-plan a shot, I end up having to redo a lot of things, or I didn't set up the controllers right and I have to go reanimate in like FK or reanimate in IK, or you know, something like that comes up where you're not using like world follow or chest follow. It's good to just sit down, plan your shot out, plan the path of the character out, make sure everything works well before you start animating the shot itself. And the next point kind of goes a little bit with the last point. It's to at least try to never animate a god node. Animating a god node may seem fine at first, or when you're like in the blocking stage or whatever, to make things go faster. But once you get to spline and once you need to change something, change the timing of something, then you're in counter animating hell. Trust me, almost every single time I've animated the world, and I convinced myself, nope, there won't be any notes, there won't be any changes, this is it, it's gonna work. There ended up being notes, or I ended up having to change something, and it took many hours for something that would have taken an hour or two, just because I was counter animating to the god node. So it's not worth it. Do not animate the god node if you don't have to. Another animating tip that I can think of is if you have big body mechanic shots, or like shots with like full body motion, characters jumping around, use a box to figure out what the motion is, where the character is gonna be, and figure out the timing with just like a simple box. You can squash and stretch it if you want, but I used this method in the secret Netflix project that I was working on, and for one scene in particular, I had the character jumping from a tree to another tree, and then on top of like the branch on that tree, and so it would have been like body mechanic hell, because what if I had to change something? What if like the motion wasn't working out, or like the positions on the trees weren't working out? So instead, I animated a box and I had it jump on the trees, and like with everything, like the delays, squash and stretch, and then like leaping, and I figured out the timing and the positioning of the character with a single box within an hour, and it saved me so much time and so much suffering, because then I would just brought the opacity of the box down, and during my blocking and during my spline, I made sure that the character was inside or at least very close to the box, and just knowing that helped me figure out the right posing, helped me figure out the timing of everything. And it was like a big load off of my shoulders, because I didn't have to think about timing and think about all those things. That was already taken care of with a box, and I just had to copy the box's motion. So write that one down. So in the beginning, when I first started animating, even when I was just drawing, I hated using reference because I felt like I was cheating. But that's a terrible mentality to have, and if you have that mentality, you're gonna have a really hard time improving. You have to look at references as something to study, something to implement. You're not necessarily copying the reference, you're copying all the little motions the body has, for example, all the little subtle things that you wouldn't have even thought of if you didn't have a reference. You want to catch those things, add life to your character, you want to get some key poses. So with references, not only are you getting golden poses, you're also giving your animation texture by adding those little subtle animations, those little subtle movements that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And also watch some Netflix, watch animated shows, and watch even films and series. But while you're watching, try and create a visual library for yourself. So when you're animating and you have to animate a certain shot, you could think back and try and remember a film or an animated show you saw that had that kind of reaction, had that kind of motion, and you can go study that. Now, I suck at this. I suck at creating a visual library, but my girlfriend, on the other hand, always knows the scenes to everything, at what time. She's like an elephant. She never forgets. I'm gonna get my ass kicked when she watches this. Alright, so next up, be honest. Be honest with your lead, be honest with your superiors. If you don't think you can finish a shot, let them know early. Let them know early, because if you don't let them know early, and then you're staying up late putting in ghost hours trying to finish it, and you're tired, or you end up not finishing it at all, well, then it's going to be a problem. But if you let them know early on, then they can either reassign it to someone who doesn't have as many shots, or someone else that could get it done in time, and it won't reflect on you in a negative way. But that's a lot better thing to do than try and finish it, or putting a lot of hours after you're supposed to be done, and the shot comes out crappy, or you don't finish it. That kind of screws everyone over. So just be honest with yourself, be honest with your leads, let them know ahead of time if you can't finish a shot, or if you have too much on your plate. That's their job. Their job is to reassign shots and figure out who can get what done. So communicate. And to add on to the last point, actually, ask your leads to take a look at your work early. So if you have just a few key poses, let them know. Ask for their opinion, because they might have something else in mind for the shot. And so it's good to catch these things on early on, because you don't want to not show your lead anything, and then you have blocking plus, or you already started spline, and then you show it to them, and they're like, oh, I was thinking the character actually does this with this hand, and you're like, oh, well, I gotta go change this pose, this pose, this pose, go all the way back to the origin of the hand gesture, or whatever the action is. And so you're going to be doubling the amount of time you're working on the shot just because you didn't show it to them early. So communicate and get opinions early on from your superiors to make sure you're on the same page. So now we're kind of moving into the life choices category. Don't do ghost hours. No, not those ghosts. Don't do ghost hours, as in don't work past the time you're supposed to. If you have a very difficult or long shot that you can't finish in your 40 hours, don't go working after work just to get that shot done. Because what's gonna happen is they're gonna see that, oh, we gave them this complex or like this very long shot and they finished it in the 40 hours. So the next time they're gonna give you a more complex shot or equally complex shot and expect you to finish it on the same time frame that they know of. They don't know you put in an extra 10 hours after work during that week. They see that you got it done in 40 hours. That's all they know. That's all the information they have. So what's going to happen is you and everyone else is going to have an increased quota because they think everyone else is slacking. And now everybody else has to put in ghost hours or has to request OT. And so that makes everyone else look like they're working a lot slower than they should be because you decided to put in more hours without letting anyone know. If you have to put in more hours, request OT. That way the studio knows that this needs more time to get done and they won't request that kind of quota from you next time. And if they say, oh, we can't give you OT, sorry, you're gonna have to get it done. Well, then it's not gonna get done because you're not gonna put in any ghost hours. Get whatever you can done in a focused 8-hour time. And once your time is up, if they denied you OT and you've tried your best and you still can't get it done, you just can't get it done. And the studio is going to have to live with that. And so they'll adjust accordingly for the next quota and the quota after. Because if you keep putting in ghost hours, not only are you ruining your mental health, you're going to be messing up the lives of other artists because it'll look like they're slacking and it'll give a misperception to the studio that they can assign more work than the workers can actually handle. And so what's going to happen is after this project's over and it has all these crazy deadlines because everyone's putting in ghost hours, then what's going to happen is their next bid for the next show, for the next production, is going to be based on the performance on this one. So they're going to say, oh, these artists can get this amount of work done in 40 hours. Really, it was 60 to 70 for you. And so they're going to bid accordingly. So the next project is going to be just equally crazy. It's a destructive cycle. Try your best not to put any ghost hours in because it's just going to make things worse and worse and worse and worse. And it just keeps going on. The studio's going to look bad. You're going to look bad. Everyone's going to look bad. Don't do it. So work-life balance, try not to let your work bleed into your life, which is a lot harder said than done, especially now with work from home. When you're off work, try not to think about work. Just try and focus on life. What usually helps me separate the two is nice long walks after work. That kind of helps me get my mind off of work. It kind of takes me to another world, and then by the time I'm back from the walk, preferably through nature, once I'm back from that walk, I'm not really thinking as much about work, and then I can focus on my daily tasks. The walk kind of acts like a buffer zone between work and life. It kind of like it helps me mentally separate myself, like physically separate myself as well. And now that I think about it, it's kind of like a commute. You know how you used to go to work or go to school, and then you would commute home and use that commute time to kind of decompress and get out of work mode, or I don't know, like for me, I used to listen to an audiobook, but that's kind of turned into me just going out for a walk in nature now instead of commuting, which I like a lot more. But it kind of acts in the same way. You kind of decompress during that time, and then you can separate work from life a little bit easier. So that would be my tip when it comes to that. Don't be an asshole. Yes, studios care about your skill, but they also care about your personality. If you're difficult to work with and you're an a-hole, well, let's just say I've never had any coworkers get fired for performance issues, but I've had a couple of coworkers now actually get fired for personality issues. They would make the life of other artists around them hard, and so all of a sudden, oh, they're let go. And the studio would make sure to let us know that, you know, this isn't performance based, and it's because this person, they don't name specifics, but they mention it's, you know, due to personality. So don't be an a-hole. Being an animator is a team-based game. You have to work with several other artists. You have to work in a hierarchy of people above you, people above them, and people in other productions, as well as your own fellow animators. You have to discuss between them who's going first, who has a shot done first, so you can copy their pose or whatever. It's a team-based game. It takes an army to make a film, so you have to learn to work with others if you want to be an animator. And on top of that, it's a very small industry, so if you're an a-hole and you make people's lives hard, chances are very high, like 90+%, that in your next production or the production after, you'll be working with your coworkers from before. And so if one of your coworkers whose lives you made hard sees your name as being interviewed, or mentions or hears that you're being interviewed, they might just let the HR person know that this person is kind of an a-hole, he's a douchey McDouche, you don't want to hire him. So what's the moral of the story? Don't be a douchey McDouche. So this is the more of a financial side of things. Animation is volatile. The animation industry is volatile. Now you'll hear people being like, the only reason you think animation is volatile is because you're not good enough and you can't get a job. Were the people at Blue Sky not good enough? Everyone's suddenly out of a job on a short notice? No, this is just a contract-based work, and on top of it being a contract-based work where you have to hunt for your next contract and make sure you have a job lined up, your studio's not going to take care of you in most cases. On top of that, there's the risk of your studio shutting down itself, because your studio itself is based on contracts. They have to find clients. If they don't find a client and they don't get a contract, you don't get a contract. Or they have to shut the place down because they don't have enough funds to keep running without having a contract. So it just overall, it's very volatile. Now, volatile does not necessarily mean risky, but there is definitely a lot more risk involved than a blue collar like 9-to-5 job. So you want to be financially ready for any kind of burden or any kind of volatility that comes your way when you're working in the animation industry. Now, unfortunately, finance isn't really something artists think of in most cases. I think that's happening a little bit more and more. People are thinking about it a little bit more. But I've learned to financially educate myself and invest as early as I possibly could. Now, I've been blessed enough to make some really good investments, knock on wood, and have a growing nest egg where I'm not worried about my studio shutting down, me being let go, or a studio treating me badly and disrespecting me, and me having to take it because I have no other choice. So now I feel comfortable leaving a job, looking for another one, looking for a place where treats me better or appreciates my work. I have that option now, and I really want to encourage other artists to look into being more financially free and more financially educated. Because right now I could go without a job for several years and I'll be fine. I don't want to. I'd rather keep growing it for retirement, growing that nest egg for retirement. But I have that option. And so I don't feel like there's a boot to my throat if some company is like treating me badly or whatever, you know? But I have that peace of mind now, and I'm super happy and super grateful for it. If you guys are interested in some more financial videos on this channel as well, I did make one a couple of weeks ago. You guys can go check that out. Let me know if you wanted me to make more videos like that. You like more financial videos on the channel as well. I would love to make some more financial videos, but I'll wait in the comments and see what you guys think. This has been just a few lessons I've learned in the last 3.5 years of animating. I hope you took something from it, and if you did, do consider slightly just smashing that like button for the YouTube algorithm to help the channel out. And if you have something of your own to share, if you have an experience of your own, a tip of your own to share, drop a comment down below, let me know, let the rest of the class know. And if you're interested in an extensive Blender animation course, I'm talking extensive. I can't give out too much information yet, but me and a few other artists are working on it. And if you're interested in when it may come out, then there's a link down below in the comment section pinned for you to click and pre-register for updates on that course. With that said, I'd like to give a huge thank you to my beautiful Patreons. Thank you guys for continuously supporting this channel. With all that out of the way, happy animating, and I will see you guys in the next video.